Jane is going to talk about what is Equine Assisted Learning. A little bit about Jane. Jane is an expert in an authentic leadership development, combining her lifelong passion for understanding and extensive training in everything horses with her long history of corporate leadership experience both in Australia and internationally. Jane is qualified as an Equine Assisted Learning Facilitator with Equine Connections Incorporated. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, and welcome to everybody here. We're delighted that you've decided to come and spend your afternoon listening to us talk. I've roped Alice in as well, so I'm not alone up here, which is great. Alice and I are a bit of a partnership. So firstly, just to explain a little bit about why they kind of approached me to do this talk is I've been passionate about animals ever since I was born, basically. I nagged my parents and was able to start going to the local stables at the age of 9, and I'm a bit older than that now, in my 50s. And I've never really looked back. I volunteered working there and started riding and things like that. But to be honest, I never really appreciated what horses could do for us until I moved to my own property in 2011, and I had the horses in my back door 24/7. And I saw the profound effect that horses can have on people, even and most profoundly the non-horsey people. So it's not just us horse lovers who go, oh yes, they're amazing. It was really people who were scared of them, who wanted nothing to do with them, this profound effect they had. And I thought, this is something I can really take to a broader audience, and how do I do that? So in 2015, I studied Equine Assisted Learning. I'm going to call it EAL from now on. It's just less of a mouthful. So EAL. I studied that at the beginning of 2015. And then Alice joined me. I've pretty much immersed myself in it ever since. And Equine Enhanced Experiences is really just growing and just an amazing career opportunity. And Alice joined me in 2017, and together with our human teammates, our support crew is here in the corner. One's even dressed as a horse. That's pretty freaking amazing. And our beautiful horse team members, we've actually had literally hundreds of clients through our doors. We started working with a lot of youth at risk. We've actually moved on to more, we work mainly with leadership development and kind of team development type work, team dynamics, things like that. And I think what made us do that is I figured that if we can kind of from the top down convince people how awesome horses are, then we're also giving horses and all animals a voice, which is really a huge life thing for me. And we also train people in equine assisted learning, so if we can spread the magic and the love that way as well, then we feel very fulfilled.
We have a couple of our facilitators here today.
We do.
And one of the great things about EAL is that it's really applicable across client groups. So you heard Jane say that we started with youth at risk, we now work in the corporate space. Equally, we have our facilitators who work across all sorts of different groups, so women, families, whatever it might be.
Exactly. Well, everything I said was meant to be with that slide, so moving on to the next slide. So what is EAL? What exactly is EAL? It's a really, really good question, because when people approach us about it, we get all these sorts of questions. So a big one is it therapy? Do I need a psychology degree? Is it coaching? Do the people ride the horses? We get those questions all the time, and the answer is no, not really. It's none of those. As you were saying, if you have those skills and experience and qualifications and you'd like to combine it with EAL, then that's a great way to do that. But otherwise, no, it is a standalone certification, and you don't need to be any of those things. It's quite hard to put into words because it is experiential, but we've done our darndest, and I'm going to give it a red hot crack. So I'm actually going to read this thing because this whole thing is based on this. So Equine Assisted Learning is an experiential method of developing life skills, facilitated by a qualified professional to meet educational, professional and personal needs, goals, through intentionally designed interactions with horses. So that's a really nice complete definition of what EAL is. So for the first point, equine assisted learning is an experiential method of developing skills. Most of the photos throughout are actually photos from our clients and our or our facilitators. And so they're actually real life photos. If you have any questions afterwards about them as well, we can fill you in. So experiential learning is really an immersive way of learning. You're actually involved in your own learning, and the benefits are actually immediate. So, for example, people come into your arena, they're actually in the present moment right then because they're with this horse, like they're out of their comfort zone, they're out of their usual setting. Yes, you might get clients who are horsey people, but even for them, I guarantee you it's a different learning. It's a totally different way of being with the horses, really listening to the horse that way. What else do I have here? Yes, it pushes them out of there, and it provides a great opportunity for immediate, honest feedback with cause and effect situations. So as we were saying before, you can have the client where...
Yeah, so we have some good examples of this. If you think about, that instant feedback, instant honest feedback. So imagine, often we get feedback, whether it's at work, from our family, whatever it might be. Imagine if we've got a client in the arena who's been told in the past, or their feedback at work has been, you're not assertive enough, or you're too assertive. But what does that actually mean? It's really difficult for us to get a benchmark as people of what that means. The difference for us is their clients come, they're in the arena with the horse, and the horse is actually responding to them in that moment. So what that gives the client is an opportunity to change their approach and actually see the feedback from the horse, or the response from the horse change too.
And they can actually feel that difference in themselves. And what we encourage them is to kind of lock that feeling in and take it back with them. Mm-hmm. Because as you and I were discussing before, it's actually not about working with horses in an arena, even though it's all about that. It's about taking those skills to your broader life. So whatever that is, if it's for kids in the classroom situation, or in the playground situation where we know that can be really tough for kids, or in an office situation. So all those sort of skills that we can take with us.
And we like to say it's almost a little bit more palatable, if you like, coming from a horse. Sometimes feedback from people can be a little bit difficult to take on board. There's a difference when it's coming from this beautiful, non-judgmental horse that's giving the feedback, and that's what the role of facilitators is to help the clients interpret those responses and then help them take that learning, as Jane said, out of the arena and parallel it to what happens in their real life, whether that's work, home, any of those.
Exactly. These opportunities provide us with the opportunity for improved self-awareness and our awareness of interactions with others. It teaches us respect, and it teaches us the epitome of teamwork, actually. So horses work collaboratively together, and we can actually feel that when we work with that, because everything that they expect from each other, they expect from us when we're working with them as well. So we can learn some great lessons from that. See, as Benjamin Franklin said, who I wrongly thought till this morning was a US president, he was not, people. In fact, he was not.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, exactly. See, but this is a great quote from him. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn. So that's your experiential learning in a nutshell. So, but how does it actually work, and why do we partner with horses in this work? So that's really probably what you will come to hear about as well. So there are two main reasons that we work with these beautiful creatures. The first one is they're a prey animal. So as a prey animal, they have really highly astute senses. They can sense things even almost before we can. And the reason they can do this is, being a prey animal, they need to be totally aware of everything around them pretty much 24/7. Yes, they might sleep, but then of course other horses around them are not sleeping. So there's always like a vigil around them. So they're always aware. They're so sensitive, they can feel things like a fly land on them. Have you watched a horse twitch when a fly lands? And we think they can't feel other aids that we use. Of course they can. They can sense I shouldn't do that on my microphone. They can sense like our heart if it's racing and we're nervous. They can sense if we're saying we're not nervous but our heart's racing, that incongruence. They're amazing teachers of those sort of things. The prey animal. And they
I was going to say, so you can imagine for domestic horses, there's no longer that immediate kind of imminent threat. We can't really think of, we're based in Sydney, if things in Sydney, they're going to jump out. But luckily for us, they've retained those senses over time. So all of our domestic horses still have those highly astute senses that give us that opportunity to learn from them.
It means that we can work with them, and it's the number one reason that we can work with them. The second one is they're a herd animal. We've got a saying of herds are to horses as teams are to people. I know all the facilitators that I've worked with have heard that a million times, but it's a really great saying. So when you're in your team, we're all parts of groups and teams, right? It could be our family, it could be the people we work with, if we're at school, the other students. How do we want to feel when we're with those groups? You don't want to shout anything out? Valued, supported, I love that. Exactly, all those things. And how do we feel those things? What are other things we want to feel when we're with those groups?
Inspired.
Inspired, I love that one. Exactly. And you know, all of that we can only feel if we feel one thing, and that is if we feel safe, right? So if we feel safe in our own skin, that's when we can feel all those other lovely things. And there are skills that we can learn to help us to become safe. And our horses role model these beautifully in their herds. So what else are we going to say about the herds?
So the way, so as Jane said, they want to feel safe just like we do. And when we talk about safe, we don't just mean that physical safety, we're talking about that, the emotional and psychological safety as well. So feeling safe to take a risk, feeling safe to have an opinion, have a voice, all of those things. So in our programs, our participants actually work generally in groups and alongside a horse. So they're actually in their own little herd, and the beautiful thing there is the people, or the humans, and the horses are, as a foundation, all looking for the same thing. But in order to feel safe, there's a few different roles that we need in a team. So, for example, strong leadership is really important. So it gives us as humans the opportunity to practice our leadership skills.
Exactly.
If our participants don't step into that leadership role, who do you think in that herd would step in then? The horse, and you can imagine how they would do that. They would do it in all sorts of different ways. So there's real opportunities for learning in this model.
Exactly. When we refer to leadership as well, we're talking more about that inner leadership. We're not talking about that rank as a boss or anything like that. We're talking about that inner leadership of just knowing your own boundaries. They're very good at setting their own boundaries, horses, and actually things like that. That's how they survive in that herd environment and feel safe. Now, they're great role models, and these are the reasons that we love working with horses as well. So my very favourite one is that non-judgmental piece. So when I say that, being non-judgmental, they're not judging us on those things that are superficial and don't really matter. So they don't mind if you're tall or small, what brand of clothes you're wearing, what car you're driving, what role you have at work. That doesn't matter to a horse. It's all about going back to that, how they feel. So if you make them feel safe, they're going to want to be with you, just like humans, right? So that's why it works so beautifully together. A couple of the other reasons that we love working with horses, and they're such great role models, is that they give that, we've said that before, that honest, immediate feedback. You can't take it personally, it's coming from a horse. They don't actually have that reasoning part of their brain, they're just responding to how they feel. So it's a really beautiful way for us to learn. What else have we got? They're forgiving as well. So if you are working with a horse and you do something, you notice he responds in a way or she responds in a way that's maybe not so comfortable. It can be subtle, it can be a flick of a tail. It could be looking, away from you, something like that. If you change something in yourself, the horse will change. So again, there's that immediate, beautiful feedback loop. Is there anything you wanted to add there? I think that's about it. So we also get asked this question quite a lot, why we don't work with our other furry friends like dogs and cats. And there are also two really good reasons for that as well. So dogs like us are predators, I'm about to say prey. Predators and horses, as we mentioned before, are prey animals. So dogs think differently to horses and respond differently to horses. Cats do as well, but cats are an enigma of their own. I have several cats and I love them, and several dogs. And they give us different things, don't they, than horses. So the other reason I think is that in a relationship with a dog, it can often be kind of like that beautiful, unconditional love. Have you ever come home really cranky after a day's work or something and stormed through the door and smashed your bag down on the bench or something? Your dog still comes lovingly running to you, wagging their tail, saying, oh, you're home, I'm glad you're home. Now, your horse might come to you when you're in that, depending on what you need, because horses are very good at reading the energy and balancing that. But, you know, the horse also may not. The horse needs to feel safe, as we know, and if that's not safe energy, then the horse will give you a different lesson in that instant. So that is a really big difference between working with prey animals and working with predators. So that's other reasons. And we're not saying that you cannot work with these animals in this capacity. It's just a really different lesson they're going to give you. Or other animals. Now you may think it's funny that I put these animals up, but these animals, I've recently read a book called Wild Leadership, and they talk about all the systems of leadership that all different creatures have in the wild, including these three beautiful examples up here. So we can also learn a lot from looking at those models of how animals survive in the wild, because if you think about it, their life is uncertain. Every day is an uncertainty, and animals in groups have come up with ways of navigating that uncertainty. So horses have as well. Horses are in herds, and the herds have this beautiful shared system of leadership and accountability. And so the beautiful thing, as Alice said before, is that all our research is based on wild horses and how they interact in their herds. So if we, so our domestic horses retain those beautiful senses that we can work with them. We can't actually access and work with groups of lions safely, or elephants or gorillas. So this is the way we have access to working with horses, and we can actually feel what it's like to be in those groups.
So there are fantastic resources out there and reading material, but unfortunately missing the experiential component in most cases.
And yes, we could observe possibly, but observation is different to what we're talking about, this experience of being involved in it. So our second point, equine assisted learning, is facilitated by a qualified professional. So that's us. That is anyone here who's an EAL facilitator. So the facilitator role is pivotal to the whole thing. Because the thing is, our clients might be having a meaningful interaction with a horse, or we see it as that, but they don't know, because they don't know what it kind of means. They mightn't even acknowledge that the horse is responding in a way. It can be subtle, it may not be, but they mightn't recognise that. So that's really the pivotal part of our job as a facilitator, is to help our clients interpret what that horse might be saying. Now, we don't put words in anyone's mouth, because I don't know what's going on in anyone's mind. You guys don't know what's going on in mine. So we need to just guide people through that. And it's very empowering when they come to those realizations of what that horse is trying to kind of impart and teach them. Another thing is, a big part of our job is to keep everyone safe. And a big part of our job is really spending a lot of time with horses, observing how they interact with us, how they interact with each other, so that we can actually keep everyone safe. If our horse is talking to us and we're a facilitator, as in he might have planted his feet and doesn't want to go with a group, that's his way of expressing himself. They express themselves largely through body language. Why? They're prey animals, so they don't want to draw attention to themselves. So it's mainly through the body language. Yes, we all know they neigh and all that sort of thing, but mainly when we're working with them, it's through the body language. So he might plant his feet, and the person mightn't realise, or they might come up with, oh, he doesn't like me, or something like that. No, horses don't think like that. He's responding to that stimulus in the time. What does that mean for that person? So another way to put it is, as a facilitator, we're actually helping human beings connect the dots of their own story. So something will happen, and we've got a few really good examples of this as well, don't we? Where, for example, one of our horses may be nudging someone, butting them with their head. So that's a response, right? The horse is responding to this person. I don't know what that means at the time, but I can see he's responding. So that's my little sign to step in and see what's going on there. So then when we ask some questions, we don't know what it means, as I said. When we ask questions, we might say, what do you think it means when he's doing that? He doesn't like it, as I said. Things like that come out. Well, no, he doesn't think like that. So what could it mean? And what are we doing here? And it could come out that this person says, oh, yes, I'm not very good at setting my own boundaries. That's a huge takeaway from a horse nuzzling you. And that is, I can't know that about that person, but they get this huge takeaway that they can take back into their own life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We've got so many lovely examples, and Jane hit on a really common one. So the horse might be nudging. You know, sometimes they'll plant their feet, which you've already said. They might take the group for a walk to the other end of the arena, whatever it is, but it's our job then to help guide and really facilitate that process. So what could it mean to them, you know, and then take it from the arena, like we said, back into real life. So parallel, you know, what does this mean for you? Do you recognise this in any other parts of your life? And that's where some of the really empowering moments come in.
Sometimes we even ask, does the horse remind them of anyone? And we get the funniest answers, like sometimes we've had, oh yes, Bart's just like my husband, or whatever. He never does what I ask him to either. And so, but then they learn new skills of how to work with someone else who has that kind of personality trait, and in a non-judgmental way, and it's not going to end in an argument like it might with her husband. So it's a great way. So we help them create a beautiful picture. If you can actually understand that horses respond to kind of every movement, intention, all that sort of thing, you start to understand how and why EAL actually works. And it only gets deeper the more you do it. They notice every little thing, and there's always a response. So it's very, very powerful. Oh no, sorry, that's just me. So the next one is that Equine Assisted Learning is designed to meet educational, professional and personal goals. So this is a photo of a corporate team building day that we had there, or a leadership day that we had. And you know, there were so many lessons on leadership styles and communication styles that came out of that day. It was really great. There are just so many, so as we said, we work with that demographic, but there are so many applications for EAL, because what it actually does, it's not talking to a specific group. We have a lot of people saying, you know, can I work with you know, children with disabilities or something? Yes, you can. But can I work with corporate leadership? Yes, you can. Now, when you go out and you do your business with the EAL, you need to be speaking directly to your client, because human beings want to feel spoken to. So you can't go, yes, I do all of this. But the horses don't really differentiate. They want to feel safe. So we can work with all these different demographics. With this one, for example, as we said before, we started out with youth at risk, and that was such a great learning experience for us as well, because these kids, they're already pushing boundaries. So to be able to facilitate that, and we want everyone to have a really positive experience as well. We want it to be a learning experience, but we want it to be positive for everyone. So that's a really good one.
We find a lot of our facilitators, once they come through training, and it's something we encourage people to do, is to initially start where your comfort level is. So we have, you know, people who come and do our certification from all sorts of backgrounds, but say teachers, for example, might take that into the classroom or work with groups of students. If people have come out of corporate, they might work more on that side of things. And then it's always lovely to watch how their journey unfolds, and, you know, where they actually end up working. And Janine's smiling because she knows that all too well.
Yes, it can really change once you start working in it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like our little secret in EAL, that we know that it works for any kind of demographic, but really, you know, as I said, human beings like to be spoken to. So when we get into that piece of business, then you want to be marketing directly to your market. But really, the horses will work with any demographic. It boils down to them feeling safe. It boils down to us reading their response, or seeing a response and stepping in, and really stepping in for our horse, if you look at it that way. So it's all about paralleling the teachings of the horses back to people's everyday situations. So you can see here these guys, they're school kids. Look at them having quite a discussion, I'd say, wouldn't you? So, okay, if those people were a few years older, it could look exactly like that, right? With the horse being one of the members in a meeting in a boardroom. So this is really our secret, as we said, for the facilitator's role is absolutely pivotal. It brings meaning to these interactions for our clients. And as we said, most of our clients are not doing these workshops or anything, or programs to go and work with horses. They're actually doing it for personal and professional growth. So they're taking away into a situation that's kind of nothing to do with horses, but the learnings are really profound and lasting. So our last one is that equine assisted learning is intentionally designed interactions with horses. So you can actually see one here. This was also the youth at risk group, I think. By the way, I hate that label, but that's kind of what it's called. We've got different names when we go out in the market, but that's what it's called. So
these were a fantastic client actually. They were kids that came through PCYC,
yeah,
I think.
correct.
So there was a beautiful mentoring program that the PCYC had put together, and they brought the kids out as part of their overall program.
Really, they're kind of on their last kind of chance before juvenile justice stepped in. And so they came to us, and all at the end of the program, like they were with us for 8 weeks, and at the end, we said to them, look, we'd love you to see yourselves as our horses see you. Because really, we have CEOs come in, and our horses will be like, won't they? Oh, there's something not right here. It's just an incongruence thing. There's nothing wrong with the person. It's just that they're not matching. Their actions and what they're feeling inside isn't matching. Or there's something in the team dynamic that isn't matching up, and the horse is responding to that. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the person, but these kids were totally congruent.
They were totally congruent. They were honest. They were authentic, right? They were being who they are. Sometimes that meant a little bit difficult to deal with, but it was real and it was authentic, and the horses were responding to that in a positive way.
And even if you look at our horse Kylie here, she has that beautiful lowish level head. Look at the slack in the lead rope. They're not forcing her along with them at all. It was such a beautiful moment. And at the very end of the 8 weeks, that's what we tried to say to them. That we just want to see, we want you to see yourselves as we see, as our horses see you. And take that away with you, because that's very powerful.
So there are lots of different, just quickly, there are lots of different EAL models and modalities out there, but, okay.
Go.
Oh, but when we're saying it's intentionally designed. So the model that we work with, you can imagine an arena. We have a range of different obstacles set up, and that helps us as facilitators. We don't, do we need the obstacles for this to work? Not really, but it's a nice way to kind of frame the programs and give us some structure to work with.
Because each of our programs has an objective, so it helps us to facilitate towards that objective. And that's all that the obstacles kind of help us with. We put people into teams as well. So you can imagine all those dynamics. I'm about to actually say that we said before that herds are to horses as teams are to people. And they help us with all those different dynamics that come up in a team. So self-awareness is a huge one. As we were talking about before, they can really, isn't she adorable?
A little bit younger than we usually work with.
She's sitting in a horse suit right there. Sorry.
No.
But we have all different people coming. So the gentleman on that side had PTSD.
Yep. So he had done some service in Iraq. He's in the army and had some challenges there, and had come and worked with us.
He's just found it really powerful.
Yeah, incredible. So it works across a range of different client groups.
Exactly, for that self-awareness piece. So he was worried about stepping into a leadership role again after negative things that happened to him in service, and he was able to step up into a leadership role with beautiful consequences, and that just was such a fulfilling time for us to be able to observe. Then awareness of others, so within a group around us, so they really make us aware of what's going on within a group's dynamic. So you can see here we've got different people here, and beautiful Kylie again, she features a lot.
And a good example for this one, if you think about awareness of others, so either in a corporate situation where a boss perhaps or a team leader thinks they're communicating really well, but in the team you have no idea what they're saying, or in a family perhaps mum and dad think they're being really clear and kids are like, we're not on the same page. And that's some of the examples that the horses will show. They will respond. They're not, they are a team member. They're part of that herd when they're in our arena. And they're not just going to pretend it's okay because you don't want to ask your boss for the 10th time, what do you mean? They are going to keep asking those questions or keep responding in a certain way until they get clarity.
Exactly.
So it really brings some of these things that as humans we tend to just accept and step back from, brings them to the surface, and it gives our participants or our clients the opportunity to work through it and acknowledge it.
Yes, and as we always say, you have to be brave to listen, because there's no mask or hiding from the horses, so they bring anything up. You might like like what you see all the time, but there's huge potential for growth. If you're willing to listen to what our horses are saying to you, there's just huge potential for growth. So awareness of others and then of the environment, and that's a huge one. So horses are not only aware of what's going on within the individuals, within the team, but also all around them all the time. Pretty amazing stuff. So it's like, what are they noticing? And who do they have to tell that they're noticing something? So that's what they're noticing. So that's me in the middle, with 3 different teams going on there. But the horses want to be noticing everything going around. You can see some swishing tails. It could have been, looks hot, could have been flies. There could have been a little bit of confusion or something that's happening. So I think we're at the end, actually. That was our 5-minute call. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
We'll repeat the whole thing just now.